I've got to be very careful what I say in this video because it could get me into trouble, but I feel strongly enough about this that I want to share everything that I can, everything that I know firsthand about how Foxtons and Dexters both operate through my own personal knowledge and experience in the industry, and why all sellers should avoid Foxtons or Dexters. But if you don't avoid them, then how you should renegotiate your contract with them. I want to make it really, really clear. I am not criticizing the staff at either of these companies, because I know that a lot of the staff there are just perfectly decent people doing the job as guided by their managers and the bosses. This is a problem of company culture. And in particular, one of company bullying culture. It always has been. You may have seen him in the news this week facing allegations of groping and bullying and drink driving. All familiar stories from my contacts at Foxtons back in the day. But that's all the tittle tattle to one side. It's pretty serious allegations, but that's not the point. This video might be quite long, but I'm going to keep the most important part short, and then at the end I will explain the whole backstory so that you understand that what I'm telling you comes from first-hand knowledge. The simple reason that, with extremely rare exceptions, I would advise anyone against using either Foxtons or Dexters is because they fail to sell 3/4 of the properties that they list, right? So they are the lowest and worst performing agents in London of the large ones, right? You have a 3 out of 4 chance of not selling if you instruct Foxtons or Dexters. And I put a link below to an article done with AI research, which has some numbers in it to back this up. Okay. And the link has the full explanation of the article and the sources for all that data. Okay. But look at the success rate, annual success rate, 22.3% for Foxtons. That's how many of the properties that they actually listed got sold. And if you don't watch any more of this video, that right there is what you should send to your friends who are thinking of using Foxtons, or if you're using Foxtons, that is the number you need to worry about. Now, I'm particularly addressing sellers who are serious sellers, as in you intend to sell, you want to sell, you need to sell, you need to move. I'm not addressing people who enjoy going on the market at a ridiculous overinflated price and sitting there hoping that they're going to get it, right? If you don't need to move, it doesn't really matter who you go on the market with, you're going to overprice and just sit there and not sell in this market anyway. But I'm going to explain what they do exactly in terms of their overvaluing. I'm going to set that out, right? I'm going to explain why they do it, because you might think, well, it doesn't make any sense. Why would they do this? Why would they lose the opportunity to sell 77% of the properties that they list? I'll explain. And I'll also explain how they do it, what they do, why they do it, and how they do it from my own personal knowledge. And at the end of that, for anyone probably watching, if you work at Foxtons or Dexters, I'll explain exactly how I know all this, going way back in the day, about the culture of both of those companies. I had a ridiculous. The only commercial relationship I've had with Foxtons was when I sued them and won because of their bullying nature. To do with, it was over a trademark dispute, but I had lots and lots of friends who worked at Foxtons way back in the day. And Foxtons is the company that basically invented overvaluing deliberately as a strategy to steal business of other honest agents. They invented it in the 90s, and it did very well for them. Not so well for their clients. Okay, Dexters was a client of mine, and I used to deal directly with the bosses and the founders of Dexters, who are still the same two guys running it now as there were 20 years ago when I was working with them. And again, this is not personal, right? This is not personal. This is just me sharing the reality from behind the scenes so that sellers don't get sucked into a situation they are going to wish they had avoided. Now, if you're another agent watching this, I'm hoping you're going to like what you hear me say, and you should use this in your efforts against Foxtons and Dexters overvaluing, because overvaluing kills the market for everyone. Because when you win a property that you've had to overvalue to win the instruction, you can't sell it for a really long time. So this is what they do. And I can actually tell you a first-hand story of listening to someone, the most successful guy at Foxtons back in the day, telling me in person about this strategy. This is what they do. They will come round to your house if you're a seller, and they will ask you what you want for it. And whatever number you say, they'll say yes. They might even add a bit more on if they need to beat their competitor who's also overvaluing. And if you have Foxtons and Dexters round, you're going to have two agents overvaluing to a similar extent, because it's basically exploiting human nature to make people think, oh, really? Well, they're a really big company and they've got huge market share, not of the sold properties they haven't. They may have large market share of unsold properties because they don't sell the majority of what they list. And so to the uninitiated seller, it looks like a really impressive outfit. And I'm specifically talking about sales now, not lettings. Lettings, I'm excluding. Everything I say about this, about Foxtons, is about their sales operation only, not their lettings operation. And I do not want any of what I'm saying about Foxtons sales to rub off on Foxtons lettings, which I cannot speak with any confident knowledge or authority about lettings, and I exclude lettings from everything I'm about to say. So they will come around and they will basically tell you wildly optimistic numbers and produce dazzling evidence to support their valuation, which, by the way, they're not allowed to do because they're not qualified official valuers. They aren't allowed to value their property. They're coming around to seduce you into signing their terms of business. That is the job of the guy who comes around to list your property, who you will never see again, probably, right? The job is to get you to sign the contract. So if you are someone who's seen Foxtons, having them round, do not get tricked into signing their contract on the spot. No matter how good it sounds, keep it, sleep on it, wake up the next morning, cold light of day. They are excellently trained at getting you to sign on the spot. And their fees, by the way, are very high. Now, I would have no problem paying the fee that Foxtons charges if it got me the best price for my property in the shortest time or in the required time frame. But ask yourself this: why do they need you to sign a 6-month sole agency contract that prevents you from selling your house with any other estate agent for 6 months if they could sell your house for you in 6 weeks? And if they can't get it under offer in 6 weeks, what's wrong? How can they claim to be a good agent if they're not getting your house under offer within 6 weeks? Why would they need you to sign for longer than 6 weeks if they're a good agent? Ask yourself that, okay? So that's what they do. They will come around and they will make a very compelling case of this wildly optimistic price that they can definitely get you. And you'll go, wow, God, that sounds really convincing. Okay. And you'll go along and you'll sign with their very high fee and their 6-month sole agency lock-in. And you'll think, yay, and you'll be excited. And you'll start thinking, and you'll start planning your next move because you're going to have all this money from the sale they're going to get from your house, which no, they're not going to get. And there are probably people watching this video who are sitting on the market with Foxtons right now, wishing they'd seen the video first and thinking, okay, I know what you mean. There are always exceptions. There will be one or two offices of Foxtons that are better than this. But this is the general overview of the whole company. Okay. Now, why would they do that? This is a really good question. Charlie, why would they bother listing stuff that they just can't sell? What's the point? Because having a large inventory attracts a large number of leads, of buyer leads. And buyer leads are the entry drug, if you like, for the rest of their business. Because when a buyer lead registers with Foxtons, they will sell you a mortgage and they will sell you conveyancing, even if they don't sell you a home. And if you're a buyer who's also got something to sell, they will come around and value your home as well and get you on their books too. So they've got three things to get from you without selling you a home if you're a buyer, okay? And because their fees are so high, they only need to sell 1 in 4 or so of the properties to break even. By the way, this strategy no longer works for Foxtons. They are currently still losing money. Their sales operation is losing money. This is the Foxtons Group PLC year-end trading update from just a few days, 28th of January, so just a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, right? And there it says it clear as day, sales operating losses reduced significantly. And if there's anyone watching from Foxtons senior management here, what a colossal waste of opportunity to have all of those instructions and not sell them, especially when you're losing money. Let me just hide that. So big inventory is Foxtons' strategy. Just look like you've got the busiest office. Have the most properties on the market. Everything else will flow from that. And for a long time, that strategy did serve them well. And they did grow very fast and they did make a lot of money until their founder, a character who, if you knew and understood, you'd realize why they'd behave like this, sold the business in 2007 or 2008. And then the guys that bought him off, it floated it. It's now a listed company. And it's never performed as well as it has again since. And if there'd been much more growth left in the Foxtons model, he wouldn't have sold it when he did. Now, how this damages you as a seller and the market as a whole is that it locks up all these properties to not be sold because they're sitting on the market locked in with Foxtons or Dexters at a price that's so high people don't even want to come and see it. And as a seller, you're stuck there for 6 months. You can't go to another agent. So that property is effectively taken out of the market for 6 months. And that puts you as a seller at a disadvantage if you need to move, unless you drop your price a long way. And by the way, the 22% of people whose properties that they do sell are the ones who reluctantly agree to drop their price and feel pretty cheesed off about it. But because Foxtons and Dexters are the two biggest estate agents in London by market share, not sold properties, but by market share, they are effectively clogging up the London market with unsellable properties. They are effectively derailing their clients' chances of selling and moving, unless they can force their sellers to do big price reductions. And they will blame the sellers, and they will just go, "Well, it's not our fault. It's the sellers being greedy. If that's what they want. It's fine if they want to sell. They can just drop their price and be fine." And then that's what they will do. They will just keep on ringing sellers up, saying, "You got to drop your price. You got to drop your price. You got to drop your price." And if the seller doesn't drop the price, they'll stop ringing and just leave you there. And eventually, another estate agent will come along, and that 77% of sellers who don't sell the Foxtons will move to another agent or not sell at all if they're time wasters. Okay. And they get away with this because sellers, nobody likes to admit, number one, that they were tricked. Or number two, that they were over optimistic and thought the house was worth more than it is. And that's why they all get away with it, right? Because no one wants to admit that, because it makes you feel a bit silly. But this isn't only harming the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who try and sell with Dexters and Foxtons every year that don't sell. It's also harming the whole market. It's harming pipelines. It's harming transaction volumes. And it needs to stop and it needs to go. And overvaluing is the culprit. So if you are considering using Foxtons and Dexters despite this warning, then I would suggest you do the following. I've said it here below, right? Say to them, all right, we'll go with you, but we're only signing for 6 weeks, not 6 months. And if you can't get my house under offer in 6 weeks, how can you call yourself a good agent, right? Point number one. And point number two, if you end up selling my house for less than 10% below the asking price you've told me you can sell it for, right? So if you're not getting me less than below 10% below asking, so let's say we agree to put the house on at 500,000 with you, Foxtons, right? If you're not getting me less than 450,000, you halve your fee. That's the other thing I'd say, because then I know you're not overvaluing, because you won't agree to that if you know you're overvaluing, because you're just going to get half the fee. And they might say, oh no, we can't do that. Sorry, it's corporate policy. We can't do that. They can do anything that they like. You and the sales manager right there with the contract in front of you could just cross out the 6 months and write weeks. And you could add in a handwritten clause that says, and if the price achieved is 10% or more below the initial launch price, the fee is half. Anyone can do that. And if they tell you that they can't do that, they're lying. They might need their boss's approval to do it. But you can just say to them, well, then tell your boss, I'll sell with you, but I don't want to be overvalued. I don't want to be stuck in your book. So it's 6 weeks or off you go. Right? That's what you should do. Please, please, please send this video to anyone you know thinking of selling the house with Foxtons or Dexters. And if they say, oh no, Charlie's just that nutter on the internet. Okay, fair point. But say to them, okay, but why aren't you worried that they only sell 22% of their properties? Let's put this back up on screen for anyone that might have missed it. Why would you choose an agent whose success rate is only 22.3%, right? Foxtons is marginally higher at 20 to 25%. They haven't got quite such accurate data on Foxtons. Why would you choose the least successful? And by the way, if you're wondering what the typical rate for selling is, it's 50 to 60% success rate is average. Really good agents will sell more than 2 out of 3 properties that they list. There are always some that don't sell because circumstances change, genuine things happen. There are always some reasons why some properties just don't sell. But anyone selling 2 out of 3 of the properties they list, any agent selling 2 out of 3 is doing well. The really good ones are selling 3 out of 4. The really bad ones are selling less than 1 in 4. Why would anyone who knows that want to consider using that agent? The only answer is because the salesperson somehow tricks you into thinking, don't worry what happened to you. Don't worry, we'll get you sold, right? Don't fall for it. And if you do, don't sign for 6 months. Who have we got watching? Wow, lots of you. Hi, Nima, Tina, Ahmed, Imdadul, Mike Dennington. Do we have any comments about this? Mike, you can't sue someone for defamation if you're telling the truth. So I'm in completely safe territory. This is not for entertainment. This is absolutely serious, and I'm stating it as fact. So if they do try to sue me, and by the way, big companies, big estate agents have threatened to sue me before. Purple Bricks threatened to sue me, and I went, go on then. And they never did, because what I was saying was true about them. So if what I'm saying is true, you can't be sued, right? The court wouldn't even accept the case because they have to produce evidence that they have suffered direct financial loss as a result of the things that I've said, and that those things weren't true, right? If they suffered direct financial loss because of what I've said, but it's true, well, that's tough shit for them, okay, because it's true. But if I lied and damaged their business, then I would be liable and viable, suable, and they would be able to sue me. Okay. Imdadal says, great advice for all the numpties who choose Foxtons or Dexters in the first place. Yeah, listen, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's not fair to call them numpties. Because, you know, if you don't understand this, they are very convincing, very compelling. They come across as very professional, and that's why they sign so many people up. Right, I'm now going to. So what I've told you is the what, the why, and the how of how Foxtons and Dexters overvalue and then fail to sell most of the stuff they list. By the way, let's just watch what Bloomberg had to say yesterday. This is important too, because this actually will be relevant to what I'm about, the stories I'm about to tell you from Foxtons and Dexters. But this is only relevant to Foxtons, not Dexters, this particular story now.
Foxtons is often seen as an entry point for aspiring real estate agents, but junior employees have told Bloomberg of unwanted touching, drunk driving, and senior staff who either ignored the inappropriate behavior. Foxtons is often seen as an entry point for aspiring real estate agents, but junior employees have told Bloomberg of unwanted touching, drunk driving, and senior staff who either ignored the inappropriate behavior or were complicit. Foxtons says it's concerned about the reports, but that it does not recognize the allegations that issues are not taken seriously. Well, joining us for more is Damien Shepherd, who spoke to more than 20 former and current Foxtons employees to report the story. Damien, I mean, this has been a pretty Olympic effort, 6 months in the making of you investigating, speaking to employees. Can you give us some of the details about what people have been telling you about the culture at Foxtons?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty grueling 6-month investigation. I've met with 20 plus former and current Foxtons employees who have told me about several different allegations related to groping inside the office and outside the office, racism, anti-Semitism, other forms of sexual harassment, bullying across the board, and rife drink driving. One of the most concerning parts of this investigation is that my sources tell me that the majority of this behaviour is happening against young, junior members of staff, potentially the next wave of real estate leaders. And for the real estate industry, which has a slightly checkered reputation, a few scandals over the years, the big question mark is, if this is the first stage of the careers of these young future real estate leaders, then how does the industry ever change?
Yeah, and through your reporting and investigation, it seems that when employees spoke up, what happened to them?
So, yeah, this was a real light bulb moment in the investigation. So it's worth explaining the leads process. So a negotiator at Foxtons is given a flow of leads, which is essentially a series of clients who want to buy, sell, let, or rent a...
Right, that goes on. So I have a bizarre amount of contact with Foxtons going right back to early in the day. So I had several of my closest, best childhood friends who went to work at Foxtons in the 90s and ended up in senior roles. I also had a girlfriend in the early 90s who I got her a job at Foxtons through my friends. I then went on to have a business partner who was Foxtons' #1 office manager in the whole network of Foxtons at the time. This is in the early 2000s. And I went on after that to employ the head of IT from Foxtons. And when I first started working in London, after I left school, I was doing other jobs. I was working in the city, but I would go meet my friends who work at Foxtons after work for beers in the evenings and stuff. So the culture was ruthless and it was brutal. And I remember one time my girlfriend coming home when we were sharing a flat in London at the time, on the verge of tears, saying it's a horrible place to work. They're mean, they're bullies, they lie to people, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, you've got a choice then. I mean, why do you want to stay? She said, well, you can make a lot of money there. I said, doing what? Sure, just doing the job, selling houses. If sell lots. And I said, well, decide what you want to do and stick to it. Either decide you don't want to work there and go somewhere else, or stay there and make some money. She chose to stay there for a while. I kind of coached her, and she broke the record for the most number of exchanges in 1 month. And she was one of the newest members of staff, and she actually exchanged contracts on 21 flats or houses in South Kensington in 1 month. Just so you have an idea, right? I had daily contact with multiple Foxton staff, girlfriend, her colleagues, my old friends, their colleagues. I would go on holiday with some of these guys. I'd go skiing with some of these guys, and I'd hear all the stories because it's all they would talk about. I did all the stories. The relevant story to tell here is not, I mean, yes, there's lots of salacious stuff, but that's not what this video is about. The relevant story here was being told exactly what their strategy was and why about overvaluing. And it was what I've already explained, basically, right? Which is just go in and tell them whatever they want to hear, literally whatever they want to hear, any number, as long as they sign the contract, so that we have the biggest portfolio. And with a big portfolio, we get the most buyers registering. With the most buyers registering, we get the most chance of selling other stuff, etc. And I remember asking, but if you do sell some of this stuff, aren't you selling it over value? Aren't you going to have surveyors downvaluing it? And I was told, now this, I'm not saying this happens now, let me be clear. This is back in the 90s. Back then, I was told that they blackmailed surveyors. They had so much work, they were so busy that they said if the surveyors didn't give them the valuations that they wanted to get the deals through, then those surveyors would be blacklisted and not get any more work from Foxtons. This is also back in the time when the Financial Times did investigation because Foxtons were pulling down the for sale boards of other agents in the dead of night. And that was true. And that was basically how they acted with everyone. That's how they acted with staff as well. Staff were summarily fired on the spot. There was no process. You were marched out of the office in front of all the other staff. You were made an example of, and you were just fired. And even if it was unfair and you tried to sue, they would just settle because it was cheaper settling with the people who did sue them for unfair dismissal than it was to go through the proper process of actually dismissing staff. They're the kind of employer who make the government change employment laws, right? They had an in-house lawyer who I had to deal with once when I sued them. And Dexters, around about the same time, Dexters became a client. And I remember the founders of Dexters saying to me, we're just going to copy Foxtons. We don't have any ambition beyond that. We just want to make as much money as we can. And that's what they've done. They were clients for quite a long time. And they've just literally gone, I can remember, I can picture mistake. Don't care, I'm just going to copy because it works. And there's room for another one. So we're not even going to just do a little bit of it. We're going to fully copy it. Slightly different culture. I'm not making any of the same allegations about the culture at Dexters as it was at Foxtons. And I have to say, I came in contact with some fantastic people at Dexters, and I would reiterate the fact that the problem with these companies is the culture, not the people, and the culture comes from the top. Mike, you might think I'm wrong on defamation, but I have walked that walk more than once. Okay, I don't know if you've got direct first-hand experience of it. I have direct first-hand experience of it with my own in-house lawyers. So yes, you're right that if I'm sued, I've got to back up what I've said with evidence. That's true. But again, the point is that they've also got to show loss as a result of what I've said, and they've got to show that it was false. Nothing I am saying is untrue. Okay. Also, nothing that I'm saying, I mean, as far as the overvaluing is concerned, that's very, very easy. But people, Foxtons would never take this to court because all of the data would become very public about how badly they overvalue. I would be astonished if it came to court. And anyway, like, if anyone from Foxtons is watching this, if anyone senior at Foxtons is watching this, I would say you've got a fantastic opportunity to double your sales income and still be below the average performance of London agents, right? You could double from 22% success to 44% success rate, double your sales income, massively boost your profits and your share price, and still be less than average in terms of performance. I just think you got the wrong focus there. You're flogging a dead horse in terms of that strategy being a worthwhile one. And it's just such now, I don't know what's going on there. Guy Gittins, I don't know Guy Gittins. He's the managing director of Foxtons. He was a frontline negotiator back in the day. So he's walked the walk and talked the talk at the front line. He's now the MD, so trying to turn it around. And no doubt it's a big company and it's a public listed company. So all kinds of regulations now that they didn't have back then, which is going to make it difficult. But I think there's a massive, massive opportunity for Foxtons and the staff there to go, why don't we compete with Dexters by not overvaluing and make them look like the ones that are overvaluing, because we'll leave them overvaluing, but we won't overvalue anymore. Mike, I fully anticipate someone having a go at me. And if they want to, I will want to make it really public. I will publicize anyone attempting to sue me for defamation, because I'm not defaming anybody, because everything I'm saying is true. Will Reese says, well done, Charlie. I've commented before on your channel about certain agents. I was told I had a purchase agreed and it just wasn't true. Yeah. They do not operate with integrity, either of those firms, as companies, culturally speaking. I'm not talking about the individuals there, right? There are good people who work in bad companies because they've got to make a living. And you can do well in those companies because their fees are high, relatively high. Their fees are still lower, by the way, than most of the rest of the countries in the world. We have the lowest estate agency fees in the world in England, which is why you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, and agents should be charging more, but doing a good job. I mean, I could tell all kinds of stories about parties, Foxtons trips. But I don't think that doesn't add any value here. It's not the point. That would just be salacious stuff, and there's no point doing that. I just want to warn people off it. I want to, if it's possible to do it, I would love to force both Foxtons and Dexters to go, we are chasing ever decreasing returns with this strategy. We would make more money if we won half as many instructions, but sold 50% of them, right? You'd make more money. What's more important? Anyway. Patricia says the best they can do is have my stream taken down if they pressurize YouTube. Well, YouTube might take it down. It's still going to be everywhere else. It's still going to be on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on LinkedIn, everywhere else. So it's pretty difficult to get it taken down everywhere. And on my own website. I won't take it down from my website. I would publicize it in every single video because I just want to get this out there. All right, guys, that's it. Please share this video with anyone that you know in London thinking of using Foxtons or Dexters to sell their house. If you are a member of staff at Foxtons or Dexters, my condolences. I know that you'd probably like to do better by your clients than you're allowed to do, but there's no chance of doing that. And if you are senior management of Foxtons or Dexters, I could double your sales figures. Give me a call, talk to me. I could double your sales figures by helping you sell far more of your clients' properties. I'm actually doing it for another agent, a small agent, one of your competitors right now in one area, and I've done it with other agents before. And if you don't believe me, get in touch. I'd be more than happy to help whichever one of you comes to me first. I can't do both of you. But I could show you. I mean, actually, you might say, well, we know how to do it. But if you know how to do it, why aren't you doing it? It's the idea is the easy part, right? The implementation, the execution is the hard part. But get in touch, because I would love to help you turn it around. And I can. All right, guys. Have a great one. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.